Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode now of Twisted Talk. I'm your host, B, and today I'm joined by the winner of Season 7, runner-up of Season 8 All-Stars, and a two-time set of Twisted Challenge, JC. How are you, JC?
You know, I'm uh I'm doing pretty well. I'd like the humidity to go down around here, but otherwise things are great and I can't complain.
I mean, it's always great to have you back. You're kind of the reason one of the biggest spin-offs exists at this point, and you're like
Yay!
one of the big players of the original era, so when you were like, "Oh, I want to do this," I'm like, "Gladly." Um, but yeah, like we met on season 8, all of us, and then you had done the season prior and won. So like even when we met, it's not like you didn't have a reputation going in. But I was stupid and I barely watched season 7. Um, which I mean probably why I lost season 8 in the end. But before we go into season 8 and then the other things that you've done, uh, let's go with the beginning, season 7. Season 7 was Go Big or Go Home, kind of a bit of a gambling-esque thing to say with the whole point system, where you could gain and lose points. So if when you like got into the season, what was kind of your thought process with the twists and your tribe, if you remember that correctly? Like a lot of
Yeah, so Crimson and I met doing Kit Kat's org Natural Survivor. Um
Mhm.
we played a 30 player All Stars together. Um and So I'd been watching Crimson's org for a couple of cycles up to that point, and I was just sitting there waiting for both a theme that came up that I liked, as well as a time in my life where I was actually going to be able to dedicate myself to playing an org. And when he put a fire token season up on the board, I immediately wanted to play that because I have run a couple of fire token seasons, and I definitely think that the fan community does a much better job with an economy system than Survivor ever has, and I think that a better job than Survivor ever will, unless they take the time to do their research and actually get someone who understands balancing advantages, which is a major problem real life Survivor has.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've hosted it like two times or three times now myself with this sort of economy. And even then, when you're hosting it, you immediately notice some issues that you wouldn't notice in the beginning. And I think just normal Survivor, if they, I mean, obviously, board players, we know our shit at this point. We've watched every season of every reality show. We've played a lot of seasons ourselves, so we kind of know what works and what doesn't work. So like if we maybe got like some of us in the production teams, maybe things would be a bit better when it comes to like advantages and challenges and stuff. Um, but of course, we know the original era is known for more unique twists. Season 1, my original season had the whole like abstaining and getting an extra vote, and then we had the two rolls twist in season 4, if I'm correct. Um, which makes it a bit unique to play this five, especially in the beginning. Um, but you start on the blue tribe. I'm not going to try to pronounce that name. Um, and how did like the early game go in season 7? Because I'm honestly not that knowledgeable about it.
Yeah, so the early game for that was all about finagling the points so that you knew who was going to be vulnerable in each particular tribal setting, because it wasn't one tribe beats the other. It was the top half players of one tribe are safe and the bottom half go to tribal. And so having the ability to choose which of our tribe members were going to be present at which tribals was integral in the early game. Um, it wasn't a situation of how do I keep myself safe. It was a situation of how do I show that I'm willing to work for other people so that when it comes to that late game, they're returning the favor.
I mean, I feel like that's a very interesting thing because a lot of times in Survivor, you just have to like, oh, win a challenge, the tribe is safe, and a lot of the times, a lot of people just barely see tribal or don't go to tribe level and they're pretty much useless, which makes it kind of boring. And like, I've experienced both sides of it. Like I've experienced literally going to every pretty much tribal and the exact opposite. And I feel like with this season, it kind of forced people to put themselves in danger at times to make sure that the game went the way they wanted it to go. And I mean, obviously, like I've read things about it. Crimson has told me stuff about it, and then kind of talking to Austin and some other people from the season. And now, obviously, it makes me understand. Like, okay, this is why this was a good season.
Yeah, I would love to see him take the concept from the season and do a redux. Completely new players, let them play in the playground that was created. Change a couple things here or there. One thing I definitely benefited from was I want to say it was Final Six, but it might have been Final Seven. When the points were disbanded, the person with the most points just straight up had immunity. And I benefited from that, but I would say don't reuse that because it otherwise you're not letting people play in that playground of spending their points, of risking their points.
I mean, we saw it return in the following season, All Stars, and it was a bit different. I feel like the effect definitely wasn't what was in this season. It very much was more like an extra bonus compared to the main theme. Because like obviously we had like four tribes, two worlds, separate games basically. So you kind of couldn't do what happened here. But I would love to see some sort of season like that, or even just like a back to basics and like bring back original twists, or like an OG's era season, or like an OG All Stars even, and bringing back like people from the first 8 seasons to kind of prove why we started it all, you could say. Um, but in this season, you're not someone that steamrolls and receives no votes. Like you receive the tied most votes for the entire season with 10. Like that
Yeah,
makes it a bit
I
more
had a
unique.
really fun weekend where I went to Raleigh, North Carolina for an anime convention to I was working the convention. I was vending and I was teaching people board games in order to sell them board games with a group that I've worked for. And that happened to be the time where we had that was the same weekend when we had the double tribal. And I wasn't able to talk to people because my Wi-Fi signal was so bad in the basement of the Raleigh Convention Center. So I'm literally like on my lunch break trying to get a half hour's worth of conversations in with as many people as I can. And Lanzi really came through for me on that in those votes, but I was about to go out twice in a row if it wasn't for those early seeds paying off by growing into those relationships fast enough.
I mean, from like what Crimson literally says on your wiki, you're like a pretty heroic and loyal player, and I think that kind of is also why I feel like you were successful on the return in season 8 because on All Stars you're like you're one of a couple of winners that came back. And even though you did get voted out in the pre-merge, you then were able to return and have a lot of people who still had your back, were willing to work with you, me included. Um, maybe not always because you were really good at also just handling your threat level, but also because a lot of people knew, oh, he's loyal, he's not gonna backstab or something. And I do think that's probably how you were able to win season 7. And a lot of people haven't been able to win because they always think like, oh, you have to make big moves and backstab people when that's not necessarily needed in these games.
For sure, loyalty is 99% of the time my number one. You got to stay loyal. You got to stay loyal. Yes, there are times where you have to turn around and make a smart decision. And I'm not going to sit here and say that every person needs to stay loyal always and forever, especially in season 8, where coming back into the game where I had been playing loyal and both Dom and Caden decided, you know what? No, we're gonna flip this. I had to turn around and be like, all right, I need to keep my loyal persona going and then just throw it out the window behind the scenes. Um,
Yeah, I'm a victim of that.
and it really was because I was voted out that I started playing a much more cutthroat game in season 8. If
I
I
mean,
hadn't if I had made it through the pre-merge without that redemption and without being voted out, I definitely would not have been able to make it through. And I'm gonna get the numbers wrong, but I want to say the final 8, 6, and 5 votes.
I remember in All Star specifically, you got voted out, and I don't even think I noticed you specifically got voted out going into that merge because like there were four tribes, and then we merged as those tribes, which were still separate, and then 20,000 double tribals, and at that point, I initially survived the 5-4 vote, and I'm like, I, I'm here by the skin of my teeth. Somehow I'm alive. And then Austin was like, "Oh yeah, JC's a fun guy. You should work with him." And then we made the whole alliance with Flowers, and I was like, "Okay, yay! Now I can demolish merge." And we did. Like that's a fact. Us four, we basically ran the entirety of the merge. Um, and then at Final Seven, I finished work, and I'm like, something is off, but I'm gonna trust this. And then Snowy tells me, "Oh yeah, they're voting you out," and I'm like, "Oh, for God's sake!" And I quickly knew it was like you, that flip for sure, and Caden. They were like the two big people around that vote. And I was like, oh god damn it. Because like that season was just also a really fun season to play in. It was so chaotic, so dynamic, so much stuff going on every round. And I also know that I was very cocky, especially that specific final seven round where I was like, oh yeah, we're just doing Caden, do it. If you don't, well fuck off, I guess. Um And I mean, the more I look back on season 8, the more I'm like, okay, maybe you probably should have gotten more to win. Because Caden kind of gets fucked over the entire season, and it isn't always his fault. And while sure you get voted out, he still did an amazing job and controlled basically every endgame vote and then we win out.
I had one goal from the final 10 forward, and that was do not let anyone else take Austin out. I have like I obsessed over taking Austin out because if anyone else takes him out, there goes my entire story. Um, Keeping him in as a shield as much as possible was certainly a benefit because it keeps my level of threat down, but I definitely got blinded by wanting to be the one to say, look, I kept all of you from doing this move that every single one of you wanted to do. Every single one of you talked about wanting to do it, and I took that away from you and I kept it for myself. And then I showed up to Final Tribal, and again I was at Otakon in DC, and I didn't have great internet, and I kind of just let Final Tribal like roll off me, which I definitely I regret how I handled it. I should have been more aggressive and cutthroat in the Final Tribal, and maybe I would have earned more than one vote.
I mean, yeah, I mean, let me double check who even voted for you. Wiki here.
Sam claimed it, but I think it was Dom.
I hate how big this wiki is from this season.
The one bit of advice I do have to all future players is don't lie for the sake of lying.
Oh, for
I
sure.
in addition to being a self-proclaimed heavy loyal player, I absolutely do not lie. And the asterisk of that situation is the one lie that I told. And lying through a mission's a little different. Not telling people things isn't lying. You're just not telling them everything, or giving them partial information isn't lying. You're still being honest with them. You're just not being totally
Hmm.
honest with them. But it meant that at the end of the game, when I actually did have to sit down and save myself from Austin's idol, um, I was able to sell the one lie that I told in all of Twistvivor and pull off the fake idol nullifier at Final Five. Which I'm sorry,
Oh
Snowy,
yeah, I
that should
remember
not
that.
have worked.
Also, I just double check. It actually was Sam that voted you.
It was Sam. Okay.
Yeah, it was
Probably.
Sam. Dom did Caden. Which I
Gotcha.
mean, I know they were really close allies, so that makes sense. Um, I mean, I remember going into jury that day, and I'm all being like, no, we. And then I was like, okay, who are we thinking is good? And they were like, oh, we really like Klaus, we like Caden, we like JC. And I was like, why not Austin? And they were like, oh yeah, because Austin's kind of an asshole. And I'm like, okay, but he's playing a really good game. And so like I basically found the seven was like I really want to go to the end with Austin because like we had gotten so close as friends at that point, and also because we're like duo of the season, and I'm still pissed off we didn't get that award together. Um,
Yeah,
and I was
Austin.
like,
Austin played back to back, phenomenal
mm,
player of the game, amazing all-star games.
1,000%.
Like he earned those, and anybody who is anybody can very clearly see that. I don't want to sit here and say, oh, Austin didn't deserve those, because he totally did deserve those. It's just
Mhm.
really hard to play back-to-back player of the games and also win when you have such a bright hot spotlight on you.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's definitely a personality. He's definitely a character, but he plays into that, which makes people kind of fall in love with him and get really close with him. And then he's able to pull off some insane moves. Like I played with him in Gold Survivor a couple of months ago, and we were like ride or dies immediately again because we were like, I know I can trust you. Like we've done this before already. I'm working with you 100%, and at multiple points, like I did my best to save him. I kept him in the game, and he makes final five. And while I get taken out of the merch booth due to my number one flipping on me, so that was fun. But like he's a really good player and definitely someone that like I'm shocked wasn't on season 20 or Flash 2 or won't ever return because he's someone I'm like he's like one of the icons of the original era. Like if I thinking back of like the original era, you have like Dvoria, who's like a really big player. You have Austin, you have Caden, and you have also myself. I would say is probably in that group.
For
I
sure.
would say Anubis is definitely underrated
Anubis
and
is super
someone
underrated. Absolutely. I
especially
can
due to Hero versus Villains.
Yeah, if Anubis had won his way back in instead of me, I do think he had just as strong a chance.
Oh, I was 100% going to be loyal to Anubis. It's like Anubis is literally why Twisted Challenge is still alive besides you.
Yeah, and speaking of Twisted Challenge, I do want to say I'm sorry that I haven't been available for it. Outside of orgs, I am an assistant manager for a car care center, and that means that I put in 50-hour weeks at the car shop, half working on cars, half doing retail operation like customer service stuff up front. And then on top of that, I am still involved with both Otakon and MagFest, the music and gaming festival in DC. And
Hmm.
both of those take up anywhere from an extra 5 to 10 hours a week of planning and calls and getting stuff prepped. So if you're in the DC area, definitely come check out those two events. We'll grab a drink, or if you're not,
And
you know,
gladly.
I know you in particular. That was more of a to the listeners nod.
Yeah, I know. I mean, hey, if like for example we can do like a Twistvivor meetup or something, that would be amazing.
one of these
Um,
one of these years I'm gonna do a Europe trip, and I'm just gonna hit up everyone I've met from orgs over the last 3 years and
oh,
be like,
you have to.
please let me come to your city for a day, give me a place to crash.
I mean, it would just be really fun in general. But about Twisted Challenge, I mean, you're literally why it exists. You were like, oh yeah, make Twisted Challenge Crimson, and I had
I
my own
wanted to
org.
see I wanted to see what Crimson would do with it, and instead he handed it off to you. And I still really want to see what Crimson would do with it, but no, what you've gone and done with it has been absolutely a blast. Both seasons were really fun to play. I may have been depressed during the second one, but that was not because of the game.
Luckily. But yeah, I literally I saw your message and then Crimson pinged me. And I was like, "Are you sure you want this?" And then I started working on season one of Rise. I was like, "Okay, how do I do this? How do I make it the most fitting theme-wise, and how do I just make it fun?" And I was like, "Okay, the challenge just did a spin-off called the Challenge USA with a unique format that they switch partners every round. That works." And so I was like, "Okay, let me do that." And then I edit it a little bit and make it like, okay, at this point it's gonna be solo, but still double elims with three people elimination, so at least it goes a bit quicker. And obviously I was like, okay, I have to invite JC. He has to play. He literally made this happen. Um, and you make it to your first final and then get third place and still have a really good season. Like you don't go into elimination, you win a daily, you win part one of the finals, and then get third. So like a really stacked finals in general. Like two of those people are two-time champs now, and one of
Yeah,
them has only made the finals. Like
that's Finn, right?
yeah, Finn is literally now uh first place, second place, third place, and is probably making another finals with
Finn's
Voyage
solid.
now.
He's
He's
got
doing
the
great.
physical game, but he manages to do the social game better than Jessica can.
Yeah, I mean Jessica is amazing, and like the episode three was with Jessica, and we kind of talked about how like her game started very much not the most social, and now she's just able to socially maneuver in a way that I do not understand it. And I'm like, so many people enter targeting her, and then round by round she's just able to like, okay, what about no? And they're like,
Yeah,
okay, sure.
yeah.
And I'm like, how does this make sense? I do not get it. But yeah, like Twisted Challenge has just been a bit of my baby, and you did season one, return for cutthroat, and you're literally the final person eliminated together with Arthur for the finals in the Purge of Green Team, which rest in peace, Green Team.
Yeah.
Um, and like we're so close to literally making to the finals without elimination again, which is incredible.
Now the elimination that elimination that I lost on the typo, it's absolutely ironic because I turned around and the next org I played was Survive Ours, and they had a redemption twist that everyone knew about ahead of time. They were upfront about it. And instead of playing an idol to make merge, I kept the idol in my pocket, got myself voted out, um, and won the get back in challenge because somebody else made the exact same typo. Different,
My God.
slightly different challenge. Um, but it was like, yeah, anyone can come in and win any challenge on any day. Uh, Sometimes you're going to be the one making that little mistake and it costs you something a standout win, and sometimes you're going to be the one who benefits from that mistake, and fate is fickle like that.
I mean, that's just the thing about the challenge where like you might think that you're not good at challenges. And then you do the challenge or and you're like, oh, this niche thing I'm really good at. And this niche thing I'm also really good at. Like
Yeah, because
it's
it's not going to be
so much more dynamic than what it looks
jigsaw
like.
puzzle the whole way through.
Like there's for sure are gonna be puzzles, but some the challenge or like me mine specifically, I do like social challenges. I do strategical challenges where it's more than just oh do a puzzle or oh count to 100 the fastest, because that's also just not fun for the players. And it makes it way more dynamic of a game. Like, for example, Finn is a great example of someone who literally came into Rise being like, I suck at challenges. And he had just done North together. He won zero individual immunity. And then he literally wins the most challenges that entire season. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a thing of like, oh, sure, not every season you're going to do the best, but you can do very well, and you just have to like try and focus.
That's that's one thing that is a little bit unbalanced though. Going back a couple sentences. The real world, the challenge, they've been slowly building puzzles more and more into it. And especially
Mm-hmm.
with this current season, the puzzles are actually they actually matter and I'm loving it. Um Whereas we have the opposite problem where even there is such a physical focus on puzzles because we can't do physical challenges. We're sitting thousands of miles away from each other on digital devices.
Hmm.
It's a shame that there is, and I'm not saying I want there to be hall brawls between some of these people. That not I've never been a fan of hall brawls. But having the ability to gather and do something with a dexterity challenge or climbing, like that's the one thing that's missing, and that's the name of the digital game, unfortunately.
Yeah, sadly, I mean, it would kind of be epic if like the All Stars fire making of you and and Austin was a hall brawl. Like, it would just be like a really epic moment to think about, and like obviously you
I
kind
think
of
I think
can
Austin
do
beats me in a hall
IRL.
brawl.
It depends, to be honest. I feel like he might be that pissed off that he would just try to bash your head in.
I could beat him
Um,
in a pole wrestle. I could beat him in a pole wrestle. I've got long, lanky arms,
Honestly,
and
I feel
decent
like
grip
that's the
strength.
only physical challenge I could do well at because of that exact same reason. So like, I'm not the most flexible, but I'm flexible enough, and I'm like, I'm not letting go.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly.
well, with Hollow Brawl, if you just get hit wrong, you're out of it.
Oh man, that's why I loved the hall brawl that they had in, I think it was in Challenge USA 2, where it's, yeah, there's a hall brawl, but then you have a puzzle.
Yeah,
The
but I
hall
wish
brawl
it
was
was a better puzzle.
like why, like just duck and let the other person run over you and then get to the puzzle and not and do the puzzle without the head trauma.
Yeah, but the only issue with that one specifically was Cecil literally just guessed over and over and over again because it was a counting thing.
Yeah.
I think you got it obviously through that. I
The
feel like if it
puzzle
was like
itself
more of
was
a
not
slide
designed
puzzle, it
well.
would have been better. Yeah, like if it was a different puzzle and like multiple rounds, great spin on it. But I hope they can change it in the future.
Yes.
Like the one time I did like a whole brawl-esque challenge in an org, it was like you have to send these three specific messages in a row without being interrupted. And it was me versus someone else in my rookie season of that org. And it was like the second elimination and already my second one of the season. And I was like, okay, how the fuck am I gonna do this? And so I figured out on my phone, you can kind of go back in the history of the messages you copied and then really quickly sent them. And so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna tell them this. And I just started
That's
spamming really
that's so
quickly. And I
cheeky.
yeah, and I was able to win it 3-2 after losing the first round. Um and then I won the season, so that was great. But like I think with challenges, so much more can be done than what usually is done. And like I'm very much like a part of that issue, so I try to change it as much as possible. And like whenever I'm in an org and I see an interesting challenge, like I'm gonna screenshot it, put it into a separate server, being like, okay, this is a good idea. How can I change it to fit with the challenge, or how can I just use it and make it fit the theme of the season? Because otherwise, it just gets a bit monotonous and be like, oh yeah, here's your thousandth jigsaw puzzle and your thousand org you've done, and then you have like Sam who just is able to finish them in 2 minutes time. Like it makes it not fun.
I'll have to send you the redemption challenge from Survive Ours because it had the jigsaw puzzle element, but there was more to it than that. I think you'll appreciate it. But I won't say what was different about it because I don't want to spoil that for future players for you.
Yeah, smart. But like obviously you're getting very busy right now with life, which sucks. Oh my voice, Jesus Christ. Um, but like you've still done 4 seasons at this point. If you got like the call for Twistvivor like Winners at War, would you do it or not?
So it really comes down to what we know about the twist. Like I don't want to play another game that is um like the flower season
Mm-hmm.
conceptually was
That'd
pretty
be cool.
cool, but when it started repeating as a viewer, I was like, oh, I wouldn't want to play that if it's going and redoing that cycle.
Mhm.
Yeah, but yeah, I would play Twistvivor again. I would not have any doubt in my mind that people were not going to let me get to the end, and I totally am okay with that. Like, I'll let my placement go down. Um, that's fine. But ideally, I really would like to come back as a mentor and have him do a mentor season.
That would be really fun. I
Um,
mean, I'm like advocating for Crimson to not do like 30-player seasons again, like,
yeah,
or even just like more than 20, because like I was like, oh, you're not doing big seasons again, yay! And Crimson flat out told me, oh yeah, we're not gonna do that again. And then Breath versus Water happens, and I'm like, buddy, you literally said it wouldn't be huge seasons again, and I don't even remember how many it was, but it was too many. Um,
yeah.
and like,
Anything above 20 is a little bit rough, even especially in some of these challenge games. It's
mhm.
if I was sitting down and playing these games in real life and taking a break from my job to go to a destination, play these games, 30 people isn't too much at all. But keeping 20 conversations going at the same time while trying to balance real world things is a little bit too much right now.
Mhm.
They would definitely have to be a I would not willingly volunteer to play a one world game right now, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
logical. I mean, I play, and when I hosted Cutthroat, I had 28 players, and I was like, okay, this will work, no issues at all. And then even while hosting, I was like, Jesus Christ, these are too many people. I'm not handling this. And then the only reason I did 28 and then turned 30 due to is a pair entering late in Bessie Sprawl in season 5 is because I was like, okay, two people are leaving every round either way. And I physically was unable to cut certain pairs because of how hyped there was with their inclusion and their application.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I'm just gonna deal with it. I'm just gonna add like an extra approach or something and make sure like this will go well. And I literally for like the first week of the game was at max channels. I had to delete multiple things of the server so it fit. Um, but it did. And season 5 wasn't a great season. So I don't regret it. But then it's also very obvious that the following season only has 16 people. Like I'm not doing that to myself again. Um, but yeah, like
I know someone's
with
going to listen to this and immediately call me out as a hypocrite because the summer game that we're hosting for Nerd Wars is going to be 28 players with two winners.
oh god,
But thankfully, and this is public knowledge, it is a mentor season, and so 7 of those players are not playing the game of Survivor. It's a 21 player game of Survivor with 7 mentors who each have 3 mentees. So it's a
is
little
that
more
still worth it
manageable
though?
than a 28 player game.
Well,
It's
definitely.
Legend of Zelda themed, so they're the 7 sages.
Oh, huh. That's actually a really good idea because I'm in production in Twistvivor, and the season right now is also Zelda themed. And the whole thing is like, oh yeah, they've got the seven. I think it's also the seven stages because I think it's Ocarina of Time that the main theme is, or Majora's Mask, either of the two. Um, and then like, oh, we have these villain rounds, and we all turn into the villains, and Ganon takes over, and yada yada yada. And that's actually really good theming. Because also like before I canceled Vviver, the season was gonna be Zelda themed. Elliot and I were like, ooh, we can do this twist, and ooh, we can add this, and ooh, we can do this, and this is all like Zelda cameos. Um, but I do think it's a really good idea. I mean, when I did Nerd Wars, the season was a season.
I really do want to see Twistvivor do their take on your twist from Nerd Wars. For anyone who didn't spectate it, and we don't get too much Twistvivor traffic, um, there were 5 teams, and it was some world. It wasn't one world, it was some world. And so each of the 5 teams of 4 had two partners, but they weren't overlapping partners. So the white team had blue partners and green partners. The blue team had the white partners, but they also had black partners. Black got red in addition to blue. Red got green in addition to black, and thus green was white and red. And so it was 5 teams of 8 in a 20-player season instead of a 40-player season, which you'd think of from 5 teams of 8.
Yeah, and
Unfortunately, you had the red team, which had one active player of their 4, and you had the black team,
yeah,
which had two, let's say, slightly
decently active.
problematic. As far as orgs go, they were actually pretty tame, but as far as I've interacted with, they were kind of problematic.
I mean,
So
Gibble was fine. Like, I love Gibble, but the other two I had so many issues with. Because one asked to be voted out, then competes in the redemption duel, wins, and then
oh, and
asks to be voted out again.
he took out Octo, who went in so ready to win because Octo is a phenomenal Magic player,
Hmm.
but he picked the worst starter deck of the 5.
I mean, I've not played in like a month due to like school and stuff, but I'm actually kind of sad that I didn't end up in one of those tiebreaker things or like fire making duels. Because like it's just fun to play Magic, and like the theme of that season was Magic Gathering, which is why like the teams and like oh that's and the lore of the game and stuff. And it was like it's a really good concept for a season, and I would love to see it in like Twistvivor and kind of do a redo of like the multiple roles kind of thing through that. Um, just don't know when or how or if Crimson's gonna do it. So I'm gonna send him this. I'm gonna say, listen to this point and do it. Um, but yeah,
It's a concept we may use again in the future, but it definitely won't be a Magic the Gathering season when we do.
I mean, I feel like you could still do a Magic the Gathering season again. Just oh, actually, wait, you could do a Yu-Gi-Oh themed one because you have like the Synchro monsters, the fusion ones. You have the Xyz, you have Pendulum, Link, normal monsters, rituals. Like you could kind of do the same thing, but with the different summoning types. So good work. This is
It could
me
work. It
giving
could
you
work.
ideas.
We did, because of real life stuff for all of the hosts. We did skip our winter season, which was going to be a Kirby themed Big Brother.
Oh, I would have done that.
So keep Kirby in mind for the future, and do keep Big Brother in mind for the future. But for this summer, it's going to be a Legend of Zelda Survivor season. Um,
I mean, when you do that Kirby Big Brother, let me know.
I will let you know. The problem
Uh,
is the advantage scheme that I want to use for Kirby doesn't match up with the gameplay that Sarah wants to use for Kirby. I
mm,
want to do a crystal shards style advantage tree where
mhm.
you collect mini advantages and you can combine 2 of them into one that's actually worth using.
Oh, that's actually really fun. Because I did Revival Season 2 was like entirely Kirby themed. And I was trying to bring in as many like Kirby themed advantages. Gonna see if I can find the document because I know there was like the secret, like there definitely was a sacred stone, like idol type thing that I had, or like they could give in multiple pieces.
Yeah, like the
Um,
magic
that
mirror,
was
you get the Squeak
yeah,
Squad whistle.
I had the Crystal Shards idol, which was 2 shards when they made like combined. Then I had like the invincibility candy, which was an immunity idol, and then my favorite one was the Warp Star, which
Nice.
was an idol that if they used it, they got forcibly swapped to the other tribe, and
Okay.
it was given in like an award challenge, and they got it. And then literally 2 people used it at the first tribal immediately to swap over, and I was like, "Oh, this is great!" Like it was so fun to see how they maneuvered that, and also they knew it wasn't the game. Um, And also then like the whole double agents thing that we had in Twistvivor, but there as like the star allies are from that game and kind of bring in as many like references to Kirby because I love Kirby. Like if you see my room, I also have like multiple plushies and figurines, and I have all of the games like basically of the Switch, and like I play both the S ones. I love Kirby. Um, I have an issue.
Wish me
Um,
luck in the air ride tournament next week.
ooh, epic!
It's not
Oh,
next week. It's not
definitely.
next week. It's in I don't know whenever the 20th is. 3 weeks.
Yeah, kind of like that. I think so. Yeah, 3, 4 weeks ish, something like that. Um, yeah,
That's the best part. That's the best part of Magfest is they do video game tournaments for the silliest games that you would not expect. Like, sure, you expect your fighting games, um, and such, but they do Kirby Air Ride. I'm hosting a Pikmin tournament.
wait, huh? A Pikmin tournament?
Yeah, Pikmin has a battle mode.
Oh, I did not know that. Huh, that's fun. Because I have the original Pikmin 1 and 2 on GameCube. So, like,
Pik-
huh,
Pikmin
might have to
Two's
try it out.
yeah, Pikmin Two's player versus player is a lot of fun.
Huh, that's good to know.
The community prefers three from what I've noticed, but I prefer two.
I mean, what I would love to see is, like, just instead of Mario Kart 8, only do Double Dash.
Yeah, they set up the 16 player double dash every year.
But that's just, like, Double Dash is an amazing game. I wish that that format returns for, like, the next Mario Kart game. Probably won't, but I wish it did. Or like they put it on like NSO. But like it's just like really fun to hear about. Like 'cause when I went to FAX, which is like the Belgian Comic Con type thing, um, they have like the world, like not the world, but like the national like Just Dance thing, and they were like, you could like go to the official Nintendo booth and you could play like some of the games there, and they were even doing like a bit of a Splatoon like tournament thing. But that was kind of it. And when it comes to like inventions, that's also kind of it here. So like when I hear like the things like Otakon and all of the other things that you have, I'm like, oh god damn it, I want to visit now. Which obviously I can't right now, but I would do have to.
It's definitely not something that I'd say, hey, make a trip over to the US for, but whenever you do eventually come on over here, choosing what like couple of weeks you're coming over around something you want to go see like that isn't a bad idea.
So I'm definitely gonna do that. Like I'm gonna be like, hey JC, I'm coming when?
Yeah, no, I'm like, okay, you're flying into DC? Cool. I'll be there. Let me use a vacation day.
Yeah, literally. Even though I feel like if I would visit, DC is one of the places I for sure would. Obviously, I would visit New York City because I want to go to Broadway. Like that's one of my bucket list things. And I feel like I kind of have to see LA. Like it's kind of like one of the things I have to see.
Yeah,
So
you're
yeah,
gonna have to make
DC is
a
for
you're gonna have to make a
sure.
full month of this trip.
If I have the money, I will.
When you have the money, it'll happen one day. It'll take a
Sure.
while. Like it's not a quick thing, but you're gonna do well with your life. You're gonna get to that point where you can do something like this.
Oh, 1,000%. But yeah, about more nerd world related. How did you
Sure.
kind of get started with that? Because I know it's existed for like a little bit now, and I did a more like recent season. I know like you have also the vet system with the attorneys being able to apply and like recruiting specifically as well. So like, how did you kind of get started with that?
So let's hit the way back machine, a full decade to 2012. On my college campus in the winter, we would do a bracket style game where it was a different game every round. And if you win your match, you move on. And if you lose your match, you're out. But in the spring semester, no, I flipped it. That was in the spring we would do the bracket. In the winter, in the fall and winter, we would do a I would say it's closer to Amazing Race style game. Um, every round of the game was a different game, and the last place player was out.
Hmm.
And then 2013, we did it again, but we did a neat little twist where if the person who was eliminated won the next game, they actually got back in and took 2 people out instead. And
Ooh,
then in
fun.
2014, somebody else hosted, and I was able to play, and thankfully was able to pull out my first LRG win. Uh, so then I started hosting short versions at conventions, 2 or 3 hour panels. We would do it Amazing Race style. If you lose the game, you're out. Um, with a vote for the winner by the audience kind of thing. And then the pandemic happened and we weren't going to conventions. So we started coming up with ideas for how we could keep our name out there during COVID. And so we would do live streams and we would do just little game shows. Um, and someone I was doing a Survivor podcast with at the time invited me to play Jackvivor season 1 as their 16th player because they needed someone. And as soon as that was over, I immediately started putting together ConLG's summer game because ConLG was the panelist group I was with. So ConLG, we did a summer game, we did a winter game, and then I did some trials, some test out games. We did an Among Us org where each team had a player that was actually playing for the other team in a Survivor format.
Ooh, that's fun.
We did. I did do 2 challenge seasons. They were definitely smaller ones. And then after a while, I had ConLG kind of fell apart because we weren't doing conventions and we weren't getting numbers for our streams or anything. So ConLG stopped being a thing, and so I talked to my friend Sparks and her friend Sarah, and we all teamed up and we rebooted it as Nerd Wars because we didn't want to call it ConLG because we weren't ConLG. We weren't this presentation comedy group. We were a different group. So we renamed it, and we started with, I think the Stephen King season was first. And that was, and the whole point of Nerd Wars was we're not going to just do a Survivor org. We're not going to just do a challenge org. We're going to take a bunch of different formats and you're going to play 2, 3, or 4 formats across the season. So it'll start out as Survivor and then it'll become a challenge, or it'll start out as Big Brother, but then there'll be 3 legs of the Amazing Race where you pick your ally who you want to race with, and the player in last is out. We've mixed in the Genius. We've mixed in a couple one-offs, little twists. I don't think we've done the mole yet. And sometimes we don't call out the show that we're like referencing. Sometimes we'll just do like a 1-round twist and still call it a Survivor game. What I will say for sure through and through, this next season is Survivor from start to finish because we want to get new players and we don't want to overly confuse them.
No, that makes sense.
I do think my favorite that we've done so far. I like the Magic the Gathering one, but we did a Legends of the Hidden Temple one for all you old folks out there, where we started with Survivor, but then halfway through the season it turned into the challenge, and each eliminated player formed a jury, but their jury vote. Sorry, I flipped it. We started with the challenge, and then it became Survivor with voting, but the jury didn't vote for the winner. They voted to give an advantage to the players as they ran the Hidden Temple, which was a challenge style final.
Oh, that's actually really fun.
So the social
Probably
game
would
still
have to get
played
that
into it, but it was a the challenge final. Like your puzzle abilities and your abilities to do little mini games was what was being tested, even though there was the social aspect.
It's kind of like a mix of old school, like the original, the challenge, and new school, you could say. That's how we know the game today.
A
Because like the
little bit.
original few seasons were just voting. Um, I think that's a really fun way to do it. And also like fun to hear about the history of Nerd Wars. And like I very much came in like super late, being like, "Oh yeah, I'm here now. Hi, I've done this. I'm recruited by JC and I'm here to play." And even if my season wasn't the most spectacular, I still got third place, and I still did good. So like, it wasn't horrible.
No, no, you weren't.
I definitely just got like the unfortunate thing that like red team got demolished, and then the one person I got really close to was on red team and got demolished, and then on black team I like got close to Gibble, and that was like the only person I really got close to in the game. And then I was like, okay, let me just like, hey, if I am not feeling the most motivated to win, let's figure out the people who are going hard and help them win. And that was like at one point, like, okay, let me do this. And I think it was Sammy who got me over. And I'm like, okay,
Just a little
got me
bit.
over. Now I want to win. And I just remember in the end game going off on him and like actually doing my best to try and win. And then I was like, okay, final three. I probably am being taken to the end, right? Like, Quiet told me they're taking me to the end. And they're like, oh yeah, you're my biggest threat to win. And I'm like, okay, not true, but you can still take me. I'm not, you're gonna beat me either way. Like, I probably wasn't getting votes to win against Quiet, but I do think I won the other scenario. So,
But then again, the Drowsy who won only got 2 votes to win, I think. And the player who got the most votes got stuck in a room and they really let it get to their head. They were having trouble in one room, and the rest of the rooms that they went through, they weren't able to really pick up the pace and make up the time. I say the lost time, but they would have been in the lead otherwise if they hadn't
mhm.
gotten so flustered.
I definitely think it's just like a really fun concept that Nerd Wars has, and I do kind of want to take this like the people listening, go play. Like even if it isn't always the most time, like even if it's like a bit time consuming, I was gonna say it doesn't take the most time. No, that's not correct. Even if maybe a bit more like time consuming or like or like all specific times, it is worth
It is a
it. And
lot.
like,
It is a
hey,
much more laid back crowd.
yeah,
We recruit as we recruit a lot of org players, but we recruit a lot of people in real life at these conventions, at board game nights, and these are people who have adult jobs. A lot of them have kids. They can't dedicate the time that a lot of Twistvivor players can. Um, so the social game's a little bit lacking, and you definitely have to ease into relationships. These aren't people who are full extrovert all the time, ready to meet new people, ready to start backstabbing. Like they want to play a game, but they're still in gear 1. They need to rev their engine up and actually like get to the point where they can keep up with an org player's speed. If you go
yeah.
into it full throttle, you're going to push them away. Um, that's
Even
the
then, I've been
biggest
playing for
that's
like
the biggest
3 years
advice I have for
now.
Nerd Wars.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been playing for 3 years now, and basically without a break. Like my longest break was like a month. And even then, I'm also noticing more and more like the person I was in the beginning of playing Resorts and my strategies then is not how I am anymore. And I just cannot anymore. And like,
Yeah,
it's not like I'm old. I'm literally 18, like at the start of my life. But just the way that a lot of these games are hosted makes it very rough, either mentally or like emotionally, where giving it my all from day one is just very taxing at this point. And while I love to do it, and I'm going to keep doing so for a while, it isn't easy. And then having something like Nerd Wars, where I very much came in being like, okay, gonna go hard, give it my all, and then having the opposite thing was like, oh fuck, it was kind of a, like a mind thing that like fucked with me a bit, and I'm like, okay, this is getting used to. That like not everyone is trying to backstab me constantly and vice versa. This is fun, calming. I don't know how to handle it, but I feel like if I am like going to return in a future season, either like a mentor or as an actual player, I'm at least going to be a bit more prepared, being like, okay, I don't have to like going guns a blazing, making 20,000 alliances, trying to control every round because it's not necessarily going to be needed.
Yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a slower crowd. We're looking for the players. We are looking for people who haven't played before. We're gonna open up applications to people who have played before, but with a tiered casting of like if you haven't made a merge before, you've got a bit of priority over someone who's been a juror, um, who's been a finalist. We don't want anyone who's won to play. Um, just like if you've won games, especially if you've won multiple games, like apply as a mentor, not as a player. Um, and hopefully we'll be able to get some solid people that way. That being said, if someone's application's no good, and if we're real like if we're getting bad vibes from them, we're not going to pick someone who hasn't played that is giving us nothing over someone who's been a 17-time finalist. Like you still want the game to be an enjoyable game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
I
we're
mean,
definitely, I don't know how quickly the podcast will be out, but we're going to be casting mentors February and March, and then casting players April and May with a tentative June start time. Although the start time is going to be scheduled around the mentors, so I don't know exactly when we're going to start because we want to make it something that they are available for. And if we have to push it back so they can finish classes or whatever, like we're absolutely going to do that.
I mean, when it comes to uploading, I still have to finish episode 3, and I've been very much procrastinating doing so. So it should be like, it should be uploaded by like at max mid January, probably before like it should be in this week that it's going to be uploaded.
Okay, cool.
Um,
Then yeah, if anyone
so
if
like
anyone has listened to us go back and forth for a full hour, yeah, go apply.
yeah, definitely go ahead and do so. And also go ahead and apply to Twistvivor in general or Twisted Challenge or any of the spin-offs because there are a lot of them. And they're
Yes, for sure,
also
for
all
sure.
different experiences. Even though obviously the people listening to this are going to be people who have played this before, so it's kind of redundant asking them to apply, but still. Um,
But
but
yeah,
yeah, I feel like
anything else you want to talk about?
my last question was kind of going to be what you kind of want to see in Twist Fight or in Twisted Doors in general. What are like some things that you perhaps want to like see happen in a game, or like a format that you really want to see, or um, like something come back or something change?
Yeah, I've already definitely gone in depth about this, but the big three things that I would like to see Twistvivor do, um, or Twisted Challenge, um, is running the Some World system, giving that a shot. I would love to see what y'all who have a better player base than we do can do with that. I would love to see the the mentor game come to fruition, particularly as a mentor. But you know, if you've got better picks, I totally don't blame you. Just because I don't think it like it's one of those things where it's like if I'm not actively pushing for it, I'm never going to get to do it. And then the third one would be I would love to see just a season that's not under any one of those umbrellas, but is specifically a format changer season. So it's not a Twisted Challenge, it's not a Survivor, it's not an Amazing Race. It's people adapting to new games every 2 or 3 rounds, and then you have a mole for a couple of rounds, and then you have the genius for a couple of rounds. Um, I think that would be really cool, but I also do know just how much of an undertaking it is because I've run that a couple of times. It's a lot. It takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, I feel like that would be really great idea to do that. And like one of the main hopes I want to do with Cricket Challenge is like a format set war type thing, and getting like Twisted Challenge people versus like Twistvivor people versus Spirit Cards people versus like Mortal people versus Brother people, etc. And kind of had to be like teams per and see which is the best. Um, but I obviously it would be like for the challenge format wise, maybe with like a bit more of a social aspect to it. But I feel like a kind of continuously changing format would be a really fun like maybe like an anniversary type season to do and bring back like 20, 30 people that really want to give it their all in like in the summer or something and being like, hey, we're gonna give it all like start of Gen 4 or something, celebrating the past X seasons. So I feel like that would be a really fun idea. I think with like the whole like captains or like people helping other players kind of go through the game is also going to be really fun, um, twist wise. And I feel like the closest thing that I've kind of done to that would probably be it was uh, in season 4 Play Connect or Twister Challenge, where like every round was based on a different arcade game. And even if it didn't go the best in practice, it still was great, in my opinion, like idea wise. Because like one round they had bets come in from outside because it was Space Invaders. So like, ooh, people come in and they take you out of the game or like beat you. And another one was like a racing game where like you do different challenges to get through it, and the last place gets eliminated and stuff like that. So I do think for more like dynamic formats would be really fun.
And those were some very good inspired rounds. It was a joy to watch that season.
I'm glad you watched it as well, even though like I different and like from the player's perspective, I know a lot of critiques came up from it, and I definitely learned and like moved that into the next season. We're like, okay, keep it a bit more simple. And same thing with the following season, being like, okay, simple can also work, but I feel like going sometimes going a bit crazy can kind of reinvigorate a lot of things.
But yeah, is there anything that you want to see that isn't something you're going to be working on? Is there anything that you want to see come out of either done by other people in Twist community or just in general?
I would love the Genius or Devil's Plan slash Gambit game type thing. Like
Oh,
I'm a very big.
that's what I needed to look up. I haven't seen Devil's Plan yet. People have been telling me to
It's
watch
a,
it for a little while now.
it's incredible because they start the thing being like, oh yeah, no one has to be eliminated. Let's work together. And then really quickly they figure out like, oh shit, if we all work together, it's not gonna end well. And like you like really quickly see alliances forming and imploding, and it's a really great mind fuck. Because the challenges in Devil's Plan are just so smart, where they're so socially heavy and then also so strategically heavy. Where if you're not good at either of them, you're basically auto eliminated.
Gotcha.
Um, and that's why I'm also like really interested in bringing this into Orcs. Like I'm a big part of the human community, and a lot of the comps there, like 90% per season, are live. And so they're able to bring in a lot of like genius comps as like normal comps, like community challenges or HOH, those type of things, because all of us are there to play it live. And it makes it so fun to be like, okay, how can I do this strategically and outplay these players and then try and win? Like one of the comps that I know out of my head is like the minus auction type of thing, where you're like buying points and still want to get the least amount. And I did that in my second season of Hitman. And I won it because all of them were targeting my number one. And so my number one went from trying to win to trying to get me to win. And through that, we were able to game it where I won the challenge and I was able to keep him safe and get our threats out. And it's things like that that makes me really interested. Same thing with traders, even though it's kind of in limbo from what I know, it exists. Um, and I would love to play that. Also with Mole, even though it also is kind of a limbo and it's going to be returning next year, something that goes more in the social, physical, and like figuring people out and knowing people is kind of what I'm really into, especially recently. Um, so seeing more of that, I would absolutely adore. Um, and another thing I also just want to see is maybe kind of trying to get more unique returnees. Because, for example, in Voyage now in Twisted Challenge, I have Spec Return, who was like on an 8 season break. On Play Connect, they had Mitchell Return, who was like on a 5 season break. I did a whole All Star season with people who literally did the second season as that All Star season, which was like 2 years later from the original season. And you had like Uni return in season 20 of Twistvivor, and like maybe explicitly going to those older seasons or like those one time players that we want to see return, but not necessarily like apply out of themselves, kind of push them to come back because it's always going to be more fun to see those people who maybe aren't the most active in our community and perhaps in others more so, and see them tackle our games. So that's kind of like the two things that I'm mostly looking forward to or really want to see happen. And I would host them if I would host the Genius S game, but doing Twisted Talk and being Twist Live in production and Twisted Challenge, it's enough.
Speaking of wanting to play the traders, I will have to send you a link to Blood on the Clock Tower server.
Who was that?
Um, it is a fancier version of Are You a Werewolf?
Ooh.
To put it
Oh, I would love to play
really
that.
to do it a disservice and put it into one sentence.
You know what? That sounds really interesting. I mean, I watched the most recent season of like the Belgian Traders, and that season was like peak TV, and it was only celebrities. So, like it was like mainly people we all knew, but the strategy, the mind games, drama, it was amazing. I found them with English subtitles as well, so I can literally send them to you if you're still online. Um, but it was just also just like things like that. Also, like with the Australian and the Canadian and the British traders, even if they're not always the best gameplay wise, they're always so fun to watch. Just like you're such an idiot. It's so obvious when knowing when they're in those games. It's not that obvious. Um, you're seeing more of those types of things pop up. I'm just like excited by it.
Alrighty. Well, I think as much as I love to hear myself talk, I've subjected these people to enough of that for one episode. Um, unless there's anything else you want to cover, I think it's time that I get to my game night.
I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you so much for wanting to do this episode. Obviously, it's always great to chat.
Oh, for
And
sure.
hey, if you ever want to play the challenge again, you know you're a lot to play. And also thank you so much to everyone for listening to this fourth episode now. More episodes are obviously in the works. They always will be. But that was it for today. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.
See you next time, V.